Hello, everybody. Welcome to another live stream. Just doing a couple things in the back end. If you are watching and you'd like other people to know I'm live, share the link to the live stream on your social media. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your kids, your boy live. I have 4 stories to cover, a big show to do today. Not a lot of time because I have to leave for work immediately after this live stream. So let's see if we are going to be late today. Good chance of that. But not going to do a whole lot of talking before the first story. I know people have been waiting for a very long time for me to do a earlier live stream. I normally do my live streams very late at night. You're welcome. Let me know if you appreciate this. I'm guessing I'll see some new people in the live chat, but let me know if the audio is okay. Let me know if I need to turn the mic up. If the audio is too low before I get into my first story, I'm going to be looking in the live chat for like the next minute or so because there's a delay. And after that, I'm just going to get into the first story. Oh, shit. All right. I see name is Mike in the chat that says, nice, great to see you live. Audio is good. Okay, that's what I like to hear. Lavitz Lauren says, first time catching you live. Audio sounds great to me. Thanks for joining. I'm glad you can make it. All right. So, and I put a lot of preparation into this show. I swear to God, I've been up since 7 o'clock Eastern time. It's like 1:17 right now. Put a lot of work into this for you all because I wanted to get these stories right for you. So the first story we're going to talk about give me 1 second. And let me know in the live chat if there were any stories that you wanted to see me cover in the next few days, so I can try to add that into the mix. So give me 1 second. All right, so the first story we're going to cover is more unhinged police brutality. In Columbus, Ohio, I believe it was 2 days ago now, a 20-year-old was shot in their bed when the police was serving an arrest warrant. And the video is outrageous. And I have a lot to say. I'm going to show you all the video. The video is kind of disturbing. It's about 20 seconds long. But I'm going to do something a little bit different. I saw Status Quo covering it, independent news outlet. And so they actually had a clip of the shooting. I'm going to play that clip along with the commentary of somebody who is a new host on Status Quo. I guess she just joined the network. And her name is Kim Brown. And boy, when I tell you she brought the heat, the necessary fire for this segment, this outrageous story of police yet again murdering an unarmed person unnecessary, uncalled for violence, ending somebody's life, and she was fed up. So I swear to God, I felt like I was watching RBN, Revolutionary Blackout Network, by how fiercely she was going after the police and calling for the police to be defunded and abolished. So I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to play the clip, both of them together, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you my thoughts on this whole thing.
And I need
Sorry, let me just find that for you real quick. I had the wrong. I don't know. Actually, I don't even know what happened because I did have the right one there before. I must have put it out of order. No problem. It's all cool. This is what happens when you do a live show. Okay, here it is. I found it.
Let me see your right hand. Come like this. Crawl out here. Crawl out. Crawl out. I'm going. Crawl out here. Get your hands up. All right, cover me. I'm going to go in. I got you. Hold on. I can come up like this. But I mean, I need cuffs. I'm out of cuffs. Oh, you. Hands behind your back. Do it now. Hands behind your back. Call for a 24. Hands.
I'm going to play it one more time because it happened very quick. So you could just see, like, literally less than a second, they shot him.
No. We're going to send that dog in. Hands. Yeah, he's got some in his hands.
You have the floor.
So I'm obviously talking about Amir Locke in Minneapolis, who in an almost identical situation was at someone's house on the couch asleep, minding their business, when Minneapolis police came in with a no-knock warrant and shot him basically on sight. In Ohio this year, Jalen Walker, I believe that's his name, the young man who was shot 40 times by Akron police. And there's a couple things that jump out to me about this. First of all, there's who this happens to, and there's who this never happens to. Okay. So when we talk about police training and the many billions, which I know we're going to get into in just a bit, Jordan, that Biden is reauthorizing for the police, trying to refund the police. This is exactly what they're trained to do. They are trained to murder very specific members of our society and to make sure that other specific members of our society are treated with kid gloves. I cannot for the life of me understand how this young man laying in bed, I would imagine, and with according to the Daily Beast, this warrant was attempted to be served, I believe, around 2:30 in the morning. So I think it's not unreasonable to think that somebody would be in bed at 2:30 in the morning. And for these trigger happy police, to be basically wearing the reforms, right? When we talk about the calls for police reform, body cams is the main thing that is brought up in terms of accountability and making sure that the police are held accountable. But you notice that body cams doesn't stop the police from flat out murdering Black people and murdering brown people with no cause, unarmed people, no less, people in bed, no less. And it just need liberals and Democrats specifically to really understand this. Defund the police is not a catchy slogan. In fact, it is very uncatchy at this point, but it is a very specific policy demand because you cannot continue to fund this to the teeth and expect, number one, your main reliable base, Black voters, to continue to vote for this bullshit. But then there's class divisions even within the Black community and different approaches to how Black people view policing within the community. We are not united on that. but for those of us who are on the left and understand that abolition is really the only way, because a system like this cannot be reformed. And I have no expectations that this cop is going to be held to the level of accountability that they should. Keep in mind that Ohio is also the same state in which 12-year-old Tamir Rice was murdered in an open carry state at age 12 for handling a BB gun. John Crawford II was just assassinated inside of a Walmart for also legally handling a weapon that was for sale in Walmart and also not given the chance to put his hands up and do anything before the police came in there and started shooting him. So I think it's really important that we note, again, who dies like this and who does not die like this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
God damn it, I'm still muted. God damn. All right. Thank you all for letting me know I'm muted. But like I was saying, that commentary from Kim Brown was excellent. It was on point. Her channel, she has her own YouTube channel as well as being a host on the new host on Status Quo. Yeah, so I'll get to that commentary in a minute, but let me first talk about the shooting. And I don't know if I mentioned the victim's name earlier, but his name is Donovan Lewis. 20 years old, in bed. Police come in, serving a warrant. And within a second of opening the door, they had no time to really even see what was going on in the room. All they really had time to do is see that there was a person in that bed. And within a second of opening that door, the police start shooting and end somebody's life. No fucking remorse. And did you see how after they shot him, and this is a common theme in these instances of police brutality, they have no remorse, no empathy, and they act like the person that they just shot isn't a human being. And they make no attempt to save this person's life. So you just shot somebody in bed, and before you even try to provide any medical assistance to save this person's life, they all stand there, all the cops, they all stand there and bark orders, tell him to crawl out of the room as he's bleeding to death, to get up, crawl out of the room, and then they go in there when he couldn't do that. And then they put handcuffs on somebody who is shot and bleeding out. So this whole thing is outrageous. The whole situation is outrageous. And it gets to, I want to touch on the point that Kim Brown made in that clip that I showed you there, which is pay attention to who this happens to and who this does not happen to. You will never, I have in my life never heard of the police coming in so hot to serve a search warrant, to serve an arrest warrant on anybody who you would consider an elite, somebody who's wealthy and well connected. And in the few instances where they do happen to be under investigation by the police, you would never see them burst into the home of a politician like that. You would never see them burst into the home of another police officer like that. You would never see them do this to a rich, well-connected businessman or political donor in the neighborhood. You would never see this behavior from the police. So it gets to a point, especially when it happens so many times, so many different instances, of the police not even giving the person a chance to comply before they kill the person. So it's clear that, of course, disproportionately, this happens to black people and poor people, but it would never, ever happen to anybody who's well-connected. And so that was such a great point that Kim made there. And also the point about the body cams. And this is the reforms that people are asking for, right? All the let's reform the police, let's make them a little bit better. For years, what their main focus has been, let's put these body cams on these police officers. Well, they have these body cams on and they're still killing people in full view of everybody. And they are unrepentant about it. And so another reason why I wanted to show that this segment with Kim in it is because the Jordan Sheridan, even though me and him, we have our disagreements and we've had our back and forth, but he has covered the issue done a lot of work covering the issue of police brutality and police murdering unarmed black people. But still, he's one of those people who was very much against the defund the police rhetoric and the defund the police policy demand and people calling to abolish the police. He was one of those libs talking about how, that's unrealistic. You can't say those things. You're going to make people feel uncomfortable, even though that is a policy demand and that is a solution to a long-standing problem that is not clearly will not be fixed any other way. But he was one of those people who were more concerned about the optics and how some people are going to try to paint lefties as radicals because they're calling for defund the police, completely missing the context that this is, like I said, a solution. It's not just something we just said because it sounds nice. This is after all of our time analyzing and studying this issue. We have come to, and all the reforms and talks of reforms for decades, we've come to the conclusion that this, first of all, this is untenable. This is untenable. Two, it's one thing when you can't go out, or when you go out, you fear interactions with the police, or when you drive and you fear interactions with the police, or getting pulled over and getting shot by the police. That's one thing. It's to the point where even if you're in your house, you're not safe. Even if you're home, you're not safe. Even if you're in your bed at 2:30 in the morning, you are not safe. So that's why people are saying defund the police. That's why people are saying abolish the police, because this is fucking crazy and this is dangerous. This is dangerous. But Jordan Sheridan has, like I said, he's been vocally against the defund the police rhetoric this entire time. So it was interesting they just had a guest who was this unapologetically anti-police, but this is now a host on Status Quo. And then all this is even more pointed because they did have an exchange on this very same topic of liberals coming out and opposing the defund the police policy demand. So I'm going to show you that exchange that she had with Jordan Sheridan on this very topic, and it seems like he's changed his tune, but I'm not. I'll come back and I'll give you my commentary on all that.
And I need for also liberals to understand that this is a very important issue, at least for me. Let me not speak for all Black people here, but let me say this for me personally. Like when liberals try to diminish the importance of police violence to Black folks and saying, oh, well, maybe we can't get everything we want. We're going to have to compromise. We're going to have to agree to disagree on some things. You're basically telling me that you are okay with Black people being murdered in their bed without any consequence. And even if this cop in Columbus is held somewhat accountable, it's not going to stop another cop in the future from doing exactly the same thing, because we've already seen this happen numerous times, even this year. So it just be very, not you, Jordan, I'm about talking to the rest of them out there, be very deliberate and intentional with your language when you diminish the issue about police violence to potentially Democratic voters, because we hear you and we see you, and and we will turn up and turn out and spoil your little vote blue no matter who party. How about that?
Right. It's just really, I mean, as a white person, I can't really I can't feel it as much as you would, but it's really, to me, just disheartening, because the worst thing is when you feel like nothing's ever going to change. I do believe on certain areas in politics with organizing, we could make structural change. But I think it's very difficult to change hate and irrational fear and bigotry. And most of these cops have it. So even, the ones that aren't outwardly racist, they all, if you send psychologists across police departments in this country, head to toe evaluation, and we were looking at it seriously, I'd say a strong 70-75% of these cops would have to turn in their badge, either whether it's outright, racism, or just a logical fear.
God fucking damn it. Muted again. Shit. Thank you all. Every time I'm muted, please let me know in the chat before I do a whole fucking segment muted. But as I was saying, let me first acknowledge that I appreciate Jordan Sheridan coming around on to seemingly the correct position here, which is we have to defund the police, we have to abolish the police. That's what it seems like. And one of the to me, when this whole like dust up started in new media, and there were a lot of white people, white pundits coming around and telling people, oh, stop saying white people calling themselves lefties and these progressives. We all know how we feel about the progressives. But coming around and telling people, oh, don't say defund the police. Don't make that policy demand, even though it might be correct, because optics and because some people might not like how it sounds and it might make people feel uncomfortable. They were literally going around as we were making the demand, because the police have continued to prove themselves as lawless, out of control, and gratuitously violent, and targeting black communities specifically. And then we make the demand that we are not going to tolerate our tax dollars being used by this occupying force to basically go to war with our own communities. And that's when people were calling to defund the police. And these white pundits were going around talking about, oh, don't say that. Don't say that. I say it because that's what I mean. And so it was always a weird position, and a position that I felt like none of them could ever take like in a discussion. They can't take that position in a discussion with a black person or anybody advocating for police abolition because all of the evidence is on our side. All of the facts are on our side. So they were all making this argument to themselves and to other people who were not going to push back on them at all. But I know for a fact they could not withstand that position was untenable to keep in any type of serious exchange with a police abolitionist. But look at how he's trying to walk this line of not saying defund the police and acknowledging that, and look at the qualifiers he puts there. We've been saying defund the police for all these different reasons. They're out of control. They're, like I said, gratuitously violent. They're basically criminal organizations being funded by the taxpayer. And they don't even solve crime. All of these reasons that we've put out why defunding the police makes sense, why abolishing the police makes sense. And again, they wouldn't really engage with any of those. But now it's the line that Jordan Sheridan is willing to draw here and say, okay, now I'm willing to defund the police is, or not. What his exact words were, if you did a psychological evaluation of all the police officers in the country, and specifically on race and evaluating them on race and racial bias, you would have to let go of, or you'd have to fire 70 to 75% of law enforcement or police officers in this country. Okay, Jordan. So basically, that's abolishing the police. That's defunding the police because the police state as it could not exist in its current form if you get rid of 70, 75 of the police force. But aside from that, is it the fact that they're just organized gangs, organized criminal organizations? Isn't that enough reason to defund them? Isn't the rampant crime spree, the civil asset forfeiture? They literally take more money. They take more from citizens than all burglaries combined in the country. That's what civil asset forfeiture does. Isn't that enough reason to abolish the police? But he just has this weird thing where, only if we do a psychological evaluation and then it's going to show that they're all racist and that's the reason why. Hey, man, whatever, as long as you have the right position. But like I said, this system of policing is untenable. Unfucking tenable. I'm going to go to the chats real quick. I have to get to the next story. Like I said, I have to get to work. Actually, I'm just going to get to the next story. But if you can contribute to the show, the links are in the description box of this video. There are links. There's a link to PayPal, Patreon, so you could sign up and do monthly subscriptions. PayPal if you want to do a one-time contribution to the show. There's also Cash App if you want to do that. GoFundMe. And the link to Cash App is pinned in the live chat. So if you guys want me to make more content, please contribute to help support the show. Now I'm going to get into the next topic, which is related to the story that we just covered. Let me just. All right. So after the biggest protest movement in the history of this country, millions of people out in the street, every city in this country, protesting against police brutality. Joe Biden, good old Jim Crow Joe and mass incarceration Biden, his response, and this is not a surprise. He was saying this on the campaign trail, which was why I was surprised so many people out there talking about Black Lives Matter in the streets, talking about defund the police and talking about how opposing police brutality. It was weird to me how so many of those people, damn near all those people, went and voted for Joe Biden, who is literally the architect for this current police state, this current out of control policing situation that we have in this country. He's responsible for that. He's responsible for the mass incarceration crisis. Him and his crime bills that he passed when he was in the Senate, and they put in place these mandatory minimums for drug sentencing and nonviolent crimes, which increased the amount of time that people spent in prison, and made sure that the judges had no choice but to send them to prison because, like I said, mandatory minimums by law for nonviolent crimes. Joe Biden did that. And the funding, giving the private prison industrial complex was created by Joe Biden and his crime bills because they gave money to states to fund private prisons. And then private prisons began being built, and the prison industrial complex, as well as the police officers who were looking for reasons to justify their funding, all drove them to lock more people up, which brings us to where we are today, where we have millions of people in prison. We have more people in prison here than any other country on the planet, more than China, which has a population over 1 billion, more than India that has a population over 1 billion. We have more people in prison here on Earth than literally anybody anywhere else in the world. And I think it's like 25% of the entire prison population of the world is here in the United States. And the icing on the cake for me, to show how intentional and nefarious this entire thing was and how they really were they planned on and they executed this plan to lock black people up for money so that their donors can make money and the politicians can keep cutting checks to the police unions and so that they can look tough on crime to run on their re-elections. They made a concerted effort to target black people, and the proof, the definitive proof of that, of course, with all those other things that I listed, was how there was a disparity between crack sentencing and cocaine sentencing. Same substance, they just made a little bit differently, and crack is used by poor people and black people primarily because it's cheaper than cocaine. And they made it so that you can go to prison much longer. I don't have the exact, but I think it might have been like 3 times longer you would go to prison for if you were caught with crack compared to cocaine. White people use cocaine, same substance. But like I said, this shows you how intentional they were in trying to lock up black people for money, and minorities for money, and poor people for money. All that being said, those decisions have brought us to where we are today with the out of control police, the qualified immunity, the gratuitous violence and targeting communities and all those things. And Joe Biden is unbowed. He is unrepentant. He has no remorse for what he did. And instead, as people are calling for defunding the police and abolishing the police, he's going to tell them to go kick rocks. And what he's going to do, he's giving states money to hire 100,000 more police officers. Mind you, there was the same number of police officers that were initially hired or funded by the crime bill, and like I said, led to this wave of mass incarceration and this boom in the police state. And Joe Biden is here after they were talking about, oh yeah, we're going to reform the police and we're going to do all this, we're going to do that, and we're serious about, oh, we hear you all in the streets, and it's so bad that they choked out George Floyd and they shot up Breonna Taylor and all these other people who've been murdered by the police. Oh, it's so bad, we're going to reform him. Where's the reforms? Nowhere to be found. But what are they going to do? Joe Biden's going to give $100,000 more to the police to. They've already been proven lawless, already put all that shit, and he's going to give $100,000 more to them. No reforms. So what you're telling me is, it's clear as day that the police are targeting poor people and minorities. It is clear as day they are at war with these communities, acting as an occupying military in these communities. And instead of doing anything to protect his citizens, his constituents, what Joe Biden is going to do, he's going to take sides in that war, and he's going to give them more money, more weapons to continue to assault the public and not make them change a goddamn thing. So I have some graphics to share with you all, to show how outrageous this entire thing is, really, to give more money to the police, especially in their current state. So let me show you this first one. Again, the police don't. So another huge reason for why it makes absolutely no sense to just keep funding them to the end of time and giving them more money than literally any other aspect of local government. A lot of the times these police budgets are like 50% of the budget. Like Uvalde, I think the budget was like 40% of the entire city budget. And look what happened when you need the police officers to actually do something for the community. 600 officers sitting outside a school while one person was in there massacring kids, and they didn't do a fucking thing about it. So what this graphic shows is, and it was from a professor, a law professor, who's studies criminal justice and policing. She did a report, and part of it found that, let me show you, read from her words. The quote, the data showed that consistently over the decades, fewer than half of serious crimes are reported to the police. Few, if any, arrests are made in those cases. In reality, about 11% of all serious crimes result in arrest, and about 2% end in conviction. Imagine that. We give the police billions and billions of dollars, allegedly, so that they can protect the community, right? They clearly aren't doing that because, like that study showed, less than 0.5% of serious crimes are even reported to police, and even less, 11% end in arrest and 2% in conviction. And let me just put it out there now. A lot of those arrests and convictions are of innocent people, because we've seen, this is a whole other issue with the police. They plant evidence all the time. They railroad people all the time. Them and the prosecutors. They will, people do not have the money for a lawyer to adequately defend themselves. So they usually get stuck with private public defenders who have like 700 other cases, which I have no idea how this is even a thing that's allowed. How defense attorneys, public defenders have so many cases. It's literally impossible to keep up with and provide adequate defense. They know this, and in order to make it look like they can get some kind of conviction, to look like they do their job even a little bit, they'll railroad innocent people. So their number of convictions and arrests and like how effective they are at combating crime is undoubtedly even lower than the 11% and the 2% number that she gave there. But let's continue. So it isn't just that the police aren't solving crime, they're out there doing crime themselves. So civil asset forfeiture is a practice where the police and law enforcement, they don't have to really prove anything. They just have to suspect that your money or your assets are the result of a crime or have something to do with a crime. And they can literally take your money, your cars, your property, and keep it for themselves. Not like they have it in evidence. They will take it and use that money themselves, or go to police auctions and sell it to get money for the police departments. Or sometimes they will just literally take the property and use it for themselves. So that's the process. I mean, the practice of civil asset forfeiture. The amount of money that, or the dollar amount that people lose to civil asset forfeiture is $5 billion compared to less than $4 billion that people lose to burglars, to regular old burglary. People breaking into your car, criminals breaking into your house and stealing your shit. The police take more in a dollar amount from people who they did not prove committed a crime. So they're technically stealing people's shit. They steal more shit from people than burglars. Again, and Joe Biden's going to give more money, give billions of dollars to hire 100,000 more police officers when this is the state of policing in this country. I'm not done. So further, even more evidence into why it makes absolutely no sense to keep giving money to police officers to enforce a law when they violate the law more than anybody else. They're the bigger criminals than anybody else. This is an article from CBS. This is about the gangs. As I said the literal gangs, actual known to law enforcement gangs that are in the police departments. And it's specifically about the LAPD. I'm gonna read this quote, this whole thing, because it's very telling about and this is the legislators in California know this is going on. The police departments and the police chiefs know this is going on. And so this is okay. This is a quote from the article. Quote: law enforcement gangs means a group of peace officers within a law enforcement agency who may identify themselves by a name and may be associated with an identifying symbol, including but not limited to matching tattoos, and who engage in a pattern of on-duty behavior that intentionally violates the law or fundamental principles of professional policing, including but not limited to excluding, harassing, or discriminating against any individuals based on a protected category under federal or state anti-discrimination laws. So that means you have white supremacists, literal white supremacists, and white supremacist gangs within the police department, and they are they're violating federal and state anti-discrimination laws. So they're out there using their official capacity as police officers to exercise their white supremacist, the ideology of their white supremacist gangs that they're a part of. This is fucking amazing. And this is public knowledge, and we all know this is going on. And again, nothing but more money to the police is everybody's solution here. Let me continue. Engaging in or promoting conduct that violates the rights of other employees or members of the public, violating agency policy, hold on. Give me 1 second. There's another one. The persistent practice of unlawful detention or use of excessive force in circumstances where it is known to be unjustified, falsifying police reports, fabricating or destroying evidence, targeting persons for enforcement based solely on protected characteristics of those persons because they're black or because they're minority. Theft, unauthorized use of alcohol or drugs on duty, unlawful or unauthorized protection of other members from disciplinary actions, and retaliation against other officers who threaten or interfere with the activities of the group. This is what's going on in police departments. I swear to God, I hope nobody in my audience is naive enough to believe that this is so rampant within the LAPD. And this is confined to that one police department. This isn't happening anywhere else in the country. That strains credulity. This, along with all these other issues that we see with policing, these are systemic issues that you can be found in any police department that you look in. And as this listed, and by the way, this was from the police departments updating their after lawmakers try to ban gangs from the LAPD. The chief or the commissioners decided to change the police policy, like to ban gangs. Which is ridiculous, and it really doesn't get to the root of the problem unless you are literally criminally targeting and prosecuting these police officers who are literally in gangs and conducting gang activity. You just put it on a piece of paper. Oh, everybody, you can't join gangs if you're in the police department. I don't think that's really going to do much, but that's neither here nor there. The point that I'm making is they all know this shit is happening. And there is really no serious effort to do anything about it other than just writing some shit on a piece of paper. Because if they were serious, they would be kicking down their doors to put all those police officers that they know are fabricating evidence, falsifying police reports, and engaging in police brutality. They would arrest all those officers, over 1,000 officers. They would arrest them, but they're not going to do that. So all of that is just bullshit. But like I said, the point is to show you, to get across that they know what's going on here. And you, like I said, you thought it was just LA, right? You thought it was just LAPD? Oh, what's this? So there was a huge scandal a few years ago about the Chicago Police Department, how they had literal black sites, torture sites, where they would kidnap people, take them to these black sites, no lawyer, nobody knows, disappear these people, have no idea, nobody knows what's going on with these people. Take them to these black sites, torture them. This was going on for years in Chicago police. And they were finally hearing about it a couple years ago. And this is a report in RT about that hearing. A secret detention center run by Chicago Police Department was under the spotlight at a first of its kind hearing Tuesday. While protesters demonstrating against police brutality blocked city streets, elected officials from Chicago's Cook County held the first public hearing about Homan Square, and quote, off the books interrogation facility revealed earlier this year by The Guardian. The investigation found that Chicago Police Department denied constitutional rights to at least 7,000 victims, some of whom were tortured and sexually abused. This is what's happening with taxpayer money. 7,000 victims, and you know, that number is much higher. 7,000 victims taken to a black site, paid for by their own tax dollars. This is insane. And they're going to give more money to the police. Blank checks for the police departments, all the police departments, and you can keep all this shit up. All right. Let me get to the next graphic. All right. So that was actually it. So, what's left to say? It's outrageous. It is outrageous that this is their response to the demand to defund the police. Go kick rocks. We're going to give them more money. We don't care if they're criminals. We don't care if they're at war with your community. We don't care if they will go in your house, shoot you in your bed at 2:30 in the morning within 1 second of opening the door. We don't care. We're pro-police on this side. We're pro-police. And then people have the audacity to come out and not only browbeat me for, or browbeat anybody advocating to defund the police or abolish the police, but then have the nerve to go tell us we need to go vote for these Democrats who are doing this shit, who keep emboldening and empowering the police state. It was Joe Biden who got us here to begin with. And then his unrepentant, unbowed ass, after all we've seen, after all we know what happened with the crime bill, he's going to double down and triple down and hire 100,000 more police officers to keep doing this shit. I don't know what's left to say here. I don't. Let me see who's in the chat. Like I said, I'm running short on time. I've been up all morning, getting ready for this live stream, and I have to go to work immediately after. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to check the live chat. Then after that, I'm going to get to the next story. Here goes, says Jordan will never say abolish the Democratic Party. Yeah, I'm waiting for that day too, my friend. Aspen Fallen, hope you're doing well. Hope you've been doing well, unapologetic. Doing okay, Aspen. Thanks for showing up in the live stream, and thanks for the well wishes. Keenan says, "Aw shit, a daytime live stream. Nice, yes, Keenan, and it's nice to see you in the live chat. Always appreciate you stopping by." John Kemper says, so many of these people, those people came out because they had nothing to do. I think that's that comment was about like the Black Lives Matter protest and the protest against police brutality back in 2020 when everything was locked down because of COVID. Surely that did play a role. People had nothing better to do. People were like legitimately like fed up and stressed the fuck out of work and left for dead by the government. Yeah, all of those contributed. And one of my criticisms at the time was there was a lack of clarity about the policy demands. And I thought that was an issue at the time. And because of that, that's how you get to a place where so many of those people, there were millions of people out in the streets. That was more than enough people to affect an election. If they were really informed on the issue and the solutions to that problem, there's no way in hell they would have voted for Joe Biden. Definitely not without major concessions beforehand, policy passed beforehand. But again, there was no real policy focus, and that's how you end up getting people voting for fucking mass incarceration, Jim Crow Joe Biden, architect of the prison industrial complex, and the police state that we have now. As he was telling people that he was going to give more money to the police. Keenan says that civil asset forfeiture chart is proof government can get stuff done if they want to. Yeah, they can steal your shit if they want to. If they feel like it, they'll run up and steal your shit, and they'll be effective as hell at it. They'll be better than the fucking professional thieves. Baba Yaga Forest Dweller. I think if this is the same person, the same as a Twitter account. Thanks for joining the live stream. You've done a lot of work sharing my content online, on social media, on Twitter. I appreciate that. I think this might be one of the first times I've seen you in the live stream. Not the first time, but I definitely appreciate it. Give me 1 second. All right. Keenan says, but China and Putin. Yes, definitely. But China and Putin. That's what we really need to be concerned about. Matter of fact, scrap everything I just talked about during this whole live stream. I think I need to double down and do some anti-Putin, anti-China content real quick. Fuck. Apparently the mic, the levels are too high. I just turned it down. Let me know if it's too low before I start the next story. Oh my God, these technical things are a real pain in the ass. Let me tell you all. If you all can help support the show, share the live stream, share the videos that I post. If you can support the show financially, I'd greatly appreciate it. There are links to PayPal if you want to do a one-time contribution. There are links to GoFundMe if you want to do a one-time contribution. Links to Patreon if you want to help support the show monthly. It could be $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever you can afford. There's links to Cash App in the description box, and that link to Cash App is also pinned in the live chat. So the next story I'm gonna talk about is, oh boy, this one definitely got a lot of attention. This is this is about that interview that Joe Rogan did with Mark Zuckerberg, where he admits that Facebook is, or that the FBI is, what was I saying? The FBI is moderating the content and giving and dictating what content is allowed on Facebook. That was revealed in the Joe Rogan interview. So I have that clip. And the funny thing is, this is yet another example of how some people can be very lazy and just run with the small clip that they see on Twitter without looking for like the more full context that you would get by like watching the longer version or listening to the longer version of the conversation that Joe Rogan had on his podcast. And because of that, yes, the clip that has been circulating that you guys have probably seen on other left content creators' channels, yes, that is damning, but also just literally 30 seconds after that clip that's been circulating is also outrageous and might be even worse. So I'll get into that. But first, let me just give you all some context about how we've I mean, of course, COINTELPRO and what we've learned about the inception of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, and all this stuff, how it's just been used to target people who challenge power, who challenge the establishment, who challenge the government. All that's true, but in the last few years, they've made it clear, abundantly clear, that they haven't stopped doing those things. And it's so weird to me how, with all the public knowledge of how nefarious and insidious and hostile to the American public that the FBI is, that they still have this reputation to many people as like some sort of like institution to be respected. Like, oh, this is the FBI. They're saying these are some real serious guys. Let's listen to them. They're fucking liars, and the institution should not exist. But like I said, and there isn't like, there's this, people think like there's some disconnect. There's like some break in history between all the shit that we've known the FBI to do, assassinations of literal activists, assassinating Fred Hampton and Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, and these and other leaders deliberately targeting them for investigations to put them in prison because they didn't like what they were saying. We've known the FBI has done this from its inception, spying on people, blackmail, all those things. And what do people think? Like, oh, yeah, they were doing all that shit before, but, you know, now something happened and they turned over a new leaf. There was never any accountability. Nobody who ever abused power at the FBI ever went to prison or anything like that. And they all lived happy, merry lives with very fine, lucrative careers. But at some point in history, they became a serious, professional, upstanding law enforcement agency that we must all revere. I don't know how people come to that conclusion. It's beyond me. But like I said, over the last few years, they keep making it clear that nothing's changed. So this is a clip from somebody who was at a high level in the FBI admitting a lot of the work that the counterintelligence division of the FBI did was to interfere with elections and prevent people who they saw as a threat from getting elected. So quite literally undermining democracy. It was the role of the FBI. Yeah, there might be enough people to support this person and the ideas that they represent and put them in the position of power to make changes in government. Yeah, but we don't like them here at the FBI, so we're going to abuse our power and authority to interfere with the elections and make sure that doesn't happen. I don't hear anybody screaming about that type of election interference. I don't hear anybody screaming about the threat to democracy that poses. So let me play a clip and I'll come back.
When you take the election and you take the House and you now convert all the committees that you have to investigating various aspects of the President of the United States, then your lifeblood has to be to react to stories. So you're going to see more stories planted so that all these committees can have a lot of work to do. And I think this is just more of the same. And I think we can expect more of this because, quite honestly, the electorate in some places is putting more and more progressives and self-described socialists in positions. And ironically, years ago when I first got into the FBI, one of the missions of the FBI in its counterintelligence efforts was to try and keep these people out of government. Why? Because we would end up with massive dysfunction and massive disinformation and massive misinformation. And it seems to me that's where we're at today.
So you hear it, and I got the muted mic myself that time. You hear it in his own words, as somebody who was a a high-level official at the FBI. They interfered with elections, undermined democracy so that they could prevent people from spreading, quote, disinformation. And remember that, because every time they do shit like this, what do they say? Oh man, it's disinformation. We can't trust what these people are saying in a country where we have freedom of speech. We, the FBI, federal law enforcement, when we think we don't like what people are saying, we're going to use our authority to go after them. And it's in the name of disinformation and protecting the public from false information. Again, in a country where we allegedly have free speech. So all those people crying crocodile tears about democracy under assault and Donald Trump is such a threat to democracy. This is why I can't take any of them fucking seriously, because none of them will come out and talk about the threat that the FBI poses to democracy. Not only free speech, but also elections, because like he said right there, him and it was the mission, not just him, it wasn't him and two of his friends at the FBI. It was a mission at the FBI to keep socialists, leftists, people who represent the majority of the people, the population, populists, to keep them out of government. What bigger threat to democracy is there than law enforcement that is hell-bent and intent on undermining the will of the people? What bigger threat to democracy is there? But that they can continue to do that unabated with the support of the American public and all the libs who are all behind them because of Russiagate, and continue to get money, endless blank checks to do what they're doing. And nobody wants to talk about where are the hearings about the threat to democracy that the FBI poses. Nowhere. Here's another one. This is from a segment I did over a year ago. This might have been back in like 2020 I did this segment. It was the FBI, and this is a story with the FBI and Facebook again, where Facebook is allowing the FBI to dictate their content. There was about journalists, independent journalists, who was paid by that were based here in the United States, and they were paid by some company in Russia to do on-the-ground reporting here in the United States about current events and issues happening here in the United States. And look what the FBI did. The FBI and Facebook did in coordination to basically shut down journalists.
Facebook on Tuesday said it has taken down a Russian influence campaign that posed as an independent news outlet targeting progressive voters in the United States and Britain by recruiting freelance journalists to write about domestic politics. The company said the operation centered around a pseudo-media organization called Peace Data. Its so-called contributors were mostly unwitting freelance journalists in the United States and Britain. The writing it featured partly focused on U.S. politics and racial tensions in the run-up to the November 3rd presidential election.
Their goal here, from what we can see, is the same as goals we've seen from Russian actors in the past. They're trying to drive division, they're trying to inflame tensions, and they're trying to undermine trust in the electoral process.
Facebook's head of cybersecurity policy, Nathaniel Gleicher, told Reuters on Tuesday the company is removing what they call a network of coordinated inauthentic behavior.
I think two of the most striking points about this network and this takedown are, one, we see these actors continuing to try to target public debate ahead of the US 2020 elections, and two, they're not having a lot of success.
Gleicher said his team acted on information provided by the FBI and suspended the accounts before they gathered a large online following. Only 14,000 people followed one or more of the suspended accounts. The website published over 700 articles in English and Arabic between February and August this year and operated 13 Facebook accounts and 2 pages, which were set up in May and suspended on Monday for using fake identities. Facebook said its investigation found links to the Russian Internet Research Agency, a St. Petersburg-based company which U.S. intelligence officials say was central to Russian efforts to sway the 2016 presidential election. Moscow has denied those allegations and says it does not interfere in the domestic politics of other countries.
Mike was muted again. Look how ridiculous that was. A company in Russia paid freelance journalists here in the United States to do work that they would already be doing. And as a matter of fact, they probably wouldn't have gotten paid by anybody else to do. So they were literally funding independent journalism here in the United States, which is desperately needed. And the FBI goes to Facebook and says, hey, ban these guys because something about disinformation. And Facebook says, yes, let's do it. Let's do it. And I guess I should have led with this about how and why this is so important. This relationship that Facebook and the FBI have and other government agencies have, and they basically merged at this point. Facebook is one of the most used sources of information by people in this country. Millions and millions of people. I think it was like 75% of the public gets their news from Facebook and Twitter. So the power that these companies have to control discourse is tremendous. And so when they have this relationship with law enforcement, and they're literally allowing them to moderate what's allowed on their platform, you have it's a very dangerous situation where we keep sliding closer and closer to the only thing that's allowed to be heard by the American public is what the government approves. And that's what the real scandal is here. The government, despite the First Amendment, and by the way, I like to remind people of this, the Constitution, all these amendments, these are laws specifically for the government, exclusively that the government has to follow. And the First Amendment, one of the most important, that's why it's first. And they're flagrantly violating that, the FBI, every fucking day. So now let's get to the clip from the Joe Rogan interview with Mark Zuckerberg. And like I said earlier, a lot of people were being lazy. They only went and played the clip and reacted to the clip that was on Twitter. But if you were to just add the 30 seconds or the 40 seconds right after that clip, the whole thing gets even fucking worse, even more damning. Because it shows you that he's unrepentant, and Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, and his default position is always going to be to censor and to prevent certain stories from sources, independent sources, or that the sources that they don't like, from being spread to millions and millions of people. And they will do it at the behest of the government every time. So let me play that clip and then I'll come back and, I'm gonna play that clip and from Joe Rogan, and I'm gonna come back and break it down. And by the way, I have no idea what's gonna happen if YouTube tries to take the video down, if I get a strike for it, whatever. I don't know. I don't care. This is an important issue, so I'm gonna play it for you all.
Handle things when they're a big news item that's controversial. Like there was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York Post, Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. I mean, basically, the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team. It was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. What we do is we have, if something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, we also have this third-party fact-checking program because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And for I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
it got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely...
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful. But I mean, but basically, a lot of people were still able to share it. We got a lot of complaints that was the case. Obviously this is a hyper-political issue, so depending on what side of the political spectrum, you either think we didn't censor it enough or censored it way too much, but we weren't sort of as black and white about it as Twitter. We just kind of thought, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, it's like very professional law enforcement, if they come to us and tell us that we need to be on guard about something, then I want to take that seriously.
Did they specifically say you need to be on guard about that story?
No, I don't remember if it was that specifically, but it basically fit the pattern.
When something like that turns out to be real, is there regret for not having it evenly distributed and for throttling the distribution of that story?
What do you mean evenly distributed?
I mean evenly in that it's not suppressed. It's not.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because it turned out after the fact, the fact checkers looked into it. No one was able to say it was false, right? So basically, it had this period where it was getting less distribution. So yeah, I mean, but I think like. I think it sucks though. I think in the same way that probably having to go through like a criminal trial but being proven innocent in the end sucks. Like it still sucks to have like that you had to go through a criminal trial, but at the end you're free. So I don't know if the answer would have been don't do anything or don't have any process. I think the process was pretty reasonable. We still let people share it, but obviously you don't want situations like that.
All right. So let me first comment on that very shitty analogy that he gives about the censorship is like a criminal trial. So many ways, that's a shitty analogy. But also, look at the self-importance that he's placed on himself and on Facebook, that he thinks their role in society is to act as this court of the internet. And you have to go through their arbitrary, undisclosed process to be able to say what you want to say and to share factually correct information as a journalist. You have to go through Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook's their judicial process, which is what he wants to call it. Secondly, okay, how is this like a court, like a criminal trial? At no point does anybody being censored have any say. Do they ever get to make their case? Ever. Facebook drops the hammer. They decide just how much they want to censor you. If they want to shadow ban you, which is your account will still be active. You can still make posts, but they make sure that almost nobody can see your post. That's what a shadow ban is. They'll decide, if they want to shadow ban you, if they want to, which is what they did with that New York Post Hunter Biden story, which that story, and I did a segment on it at the time, exposed incredible corruption between Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and the Ukrainian government, which is even more relevant now that this war has escalated and Russia has invaded Ukraine. Now that's even more important because it's proof that what's going on here, our involvement is not some type of allegiance to democracy. This is a money-making operation. The president's in on it. That's why he had his son there working at Burisma. And he was trading and firing prosecutors who was looking into Burisma and doing all these other corrupt dealings to enrich his family and to enrich himself in Ukraine. So all that is more relevant now, especially after what's happened after the election. But he makes the argument that, it's like a criminal case or trial that they went through. Nobody had any opportunity to make their argument, present their argument, but to somebody who's supposed to be an unbiased judge or unbiased jury and just looking at the facts and make a decision. Because if that was the case, there's no way anybody would have sided with censoring the New York Post article because it was factual. It was supported and it was sourced, and they had the records from his laptop. So if this was some sort of criminal trial and some fair proceeding, as he wants to pretend like it is, then this shit would have been moot to begin with. But aside from that, what and it is also alarming about this exchange that he thinks even to this day they made the right decision to censor first and ask questions later. And let me tell you why that is so bad. Because it always plays out like this. It always plays out like this. Somebody, especially in news, gets the story right and they get it right before anybody else. And it's especially if it's information that goes against what the establishment is saying. They're banned. They're censored. They get their account deleted and they lose their, some people doing this for a living, they completely lose all their revenue and their livelihood. Again, completely arbitrary and with no discourse, with no back and forth between the person, Facebook just decides to drop the fucking censorship hammer on them. And what Mark Zuckerberg is saying right here is that will always be the policy of Facebook, to censor first, ask questions later. They didn't learn any lessons from this. He didn't say, "Oh, we'll never do this again." He said, and this is why I'm annoyed that more people didn't go back and add or to watch the conversation or this whole exchange, because they would have seen that part and they would have added that to the commentary, which is even worse than just the Facebook, the FBI came and told us, and we have this relationship with the FBI, because this goes along to, yes, the aspect with the FBI, but also just the regular censorship that they do of content creators, that they will censor first and ask questions later. This is what happened with The Last American Vagabond and other people who were saying the coronavirus almost definitely, or it likely came from a lab leak from a U.S.-funded bioweapons lab. Holy shit, my laptop's about to die, and I have nowhere to plug it in. God damn. So the Last American Vagabond, anybody else, and a lot of other people who were making that argument, that at the same time where government officials knew that was the case and they were out lying to the public and pretending like it came from a bat. Just because people contradicted the official narrative from the official sources, they were banned, even if more of the evidence was on their side. So where's this fair proceeding that Mark Zuckerberg is pretending like this is? No, it isn't fair. You censor first and ask questions later, and it has terrible effects. And all the other issues, the Palestinian activists and journalists banned. Censored first, ask questions later, and they're banned at the behest of the Israeli government. That shows you how fair this and unbiased this so-called proceeding that Mark Zuckerberg has going on here at Facebook. And another thing is, when it comes to news stories, when it first happens, when it first breaks, that's when it will get the most attention. The story will. Most of the time, that's when the story will get the most attention it will ever get. So if you mean to tell me, for the first week of this Hunter Biden story, every other outlet is just going to straight up ban you, take the unprecedented step of banning people from even sharing a link, which I didn't even know was possible until I seen them do it. Preventing people from even sharing the link, suspended the accounts of the New York Post, one of the oldest papers in the entire country. And then Facebook is going to shadow ban them and the story for there were weeks their account was suspended on Twitter, but according to Mark Zuckerberg, they shadow banned them